Alright, we should be good to go now. Sorry for being late, folks. Still setting up my setup to be consistent, but once again, I had a little bit of trouble with OBS making it look good. But I'm here. Hello everyone, thank you for being here. And again, sorry for being like 5 minutes late. But we got a lot of people in chat. Thank you for being here. We got Wolf, hi, Mario, Bilal, and Shadex Mythic Coding. Thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate that. Opinion on Unity versus Unreal versus Godot versus Love to D versus Caplay versus Pygame. Oh my gosh. Well, only Love to D is the one that I use the most, so that's my personal favorite. Gronus, BSSMDE, hi. Flops, hello. Welcome in. Let me know if the music is too loud, and let me know if anything needs to be adjusted, but I think everything should be good to go. What we're going to be talking about today... Oh, the other thing is I want to make sure that everything is good for the music bot. It should work this time, I hope. Yes, it does work. It does. Good. Because that was broken last week. That's the other thing that I was having trouble getting set up. No, it's not dead. I put it on an 8-second delay because a lot of people have a bit of latency, and I don't want to spoil the song. I like it to match up around with when they see it. Desriel, Michael Bowen, Juvix, Adele, hi, welcome in. Rescue Squad, Culp, MacDury, Shade Cloak. Seeing a lot of regulars, appreciate that. So the title of the stream today was Solving, because there is a very legitimate mystery that I want to discuss, and I want to see if anyone has experience with this, because I noticed that some people in the chat have channels of their own, and they might have experience with copyright or song use. So as you'll notice in my stream and currently, there is music playing, and I play mostly Nintendo music, video game music, and it's lovely because Nintendo is very kind. They don't claim on YouTubers' videos because if we're just using it as background music, it's normally they're cool with it. They only claim you if you make a standalone video that's just sharing the music. They don't like that. So recently, and actually I'd say every other stream, every 2 streams, I have a case where some song that I'm using gets claimed. And when that happens, it makes the whole video's ads go to someone else. And that's something obviously I don't really want. So YouTube gives you the option to look into it, and it tells you the details of what happened. It tells you that you're using this particular song, and oh sorry, there's a big truck outside. You're using this particular song, and it's being claimed by this particular artist. And there's been times where it made sense. I used a Final Fantasy song once, and I got claimed, and it was specifically from the original composer or something like that. It actually made sense. And of course, if the original artist of any song asks me to take something down, I will absolutely do it if it's actually the real artist. But what I'm noticing is that some of the times I'm getting these claims, I don't think it's from the original artist, because this most recent time... Well, actually, I'll take a step back. The first time I was starting to get suspicious is when a song from Skyward Sword, the Zelda Skyward Sword, got taken down. Or I shouldn't say taken down. I had the song playing in this stream, in the Moonshire Monday stream, just in the background. It wasn't standalone, and the whole stream got flagged because I was using a specific song from Skyward Sword. And I thought that was very strange because I use Zelda songs all the time. It was kind of weird that that one particular song was called out of all of the songs that I use. It seemed out of the ordinary. But I figured that maybe that meant that maybe they collabed with an artist. I know Toby Fox does some of the music for the Pokemon games. Maybe that's what happened, where the song I used happened to be in conflict with some of the music that a different artist worked on, and that's why the particular song got claimed. So I just removed that part of the stream. YouTube actually makes it really easy, where if you get claimed in a particular part of the video, there's this auto like cutout feature where it's able to remove the background music from that part of the video. So basically, if you're watching the VOD, you wouldn't even really notice. You'd notice that the music went away for, you know, a few minutes, but otherwise you wouldn't really notice that there's a problem. So that's really convenient. But it happened again. It's been happening a lot, and sometimes it seems legitimate, but this most recent time, this morning I was working on it, I was looking into it, and I was getting really suspicious because the song being claimed was a song from Pokemon. It was from Pokemon Black and White for the Nintendo DS, and the artist claiming to have owned it wasn't Nintendo. It was, and they were saying that the song title was something completely different. It was so random. And so what I think happened, and I looked more into it, they re-uploaded this Pokemon song to a brand new channel and claimed it as their own song, and then are claiming that song on other people's videos, even though they themselves do not own it. So I had to write a dispute in order to figure things out. That's what I was working on this morning. So that's the whole mystery that I had to solve. It was a huge pain to like look into. That's bad. Yeah, I would wonder if other creators are running into that same sort of problem. I imagine that they are. I see a lot of negative feedback in general from lots of creators, including those in chat, that it's not really the best system, and it's really easy to abuse. I see stories like that all the time. It's happened to you before. And it's particularly funny because the claim lists the exact like music publisher that it's from, and it's a legitimate publisher, but this is where you can upload your own song, like DistroKid. It wasn't DistroKid. It looked like a service similar to it, where it distributes your song and they kind of claim things on your behalf. But in this case, it's just completely fraud. Unless it really is Nintendo. Like maybe it is Nintendo actually working underneath of this strange pseudonym, and then also they're not claiming that the song is the specific Pokemon song that I'm talking about. They're calling it something completely different. They claim that it's called something different and that it was written before Pokemon Black and White even came out. So, like, it's their words, it's their word against mine, and that doesn't really mean much. You've appealed in the past and worked 90% of the time. That makes sense, and what I imagine in this case is, I looked at the rules that they provided for me. It said that if they don't respond within 30 days, then it just auto goes in my favor. But that still doesn't really solve the problem, because I imagine they're doing this to anyone using that song. And it's a popular song, by the way. I think the reason why those songs in particular are being swatted like this is because they're well-known songs from games that are being used by lots of YouTubers. It seems kind of scummy, so be on the lookout for that if you're also a creator, because that's kind of annoying to have to deal with. But anyway, you can still get your ad revenue back, though. Yeah. So they have a lot of really nice systems on YouTube in place that make it a lot easier to deal with, where it's all built into the system, where if you want to dispute something, they have like a big button there for you to click, and then you can just go through this process in this form, so that they make it pretty clear and easy. I imagine they make it so clear and easy because this is a very common issue. That's what I would imagine. You can always appeal Nintendo music claims. The rest I do background checks. Exactly. That's what I mean is, if they were, it would be one thing if they were claiming to be Nintendo. That would give me even more, like I would probably just not use that song anymore if they were actually claiming to be Nintendo. But they are claiming that the song isn't the song that they claim it is. And, it's just all just completely messed up. It's very silly. Hi from Moldova. Hi, welcome. What should I work on today? I don't even have anything in particular. And also, I need to turn on the AC because I am burning up. I don't normally like to have the AC running while the stream's going because then you can hear it, and I don't like that. But I'm just too warm. And normally I would also open up my my patio door and let in some cold air. But I can't do that either because it's too loud outside. Getting Iris back in the game. Yeah, the reason why I can't do that is because I'm reworking the enemy code once again, and I can show that. In fact, I have it up right now. That's probably what I'll show first. From the Netherlands. Hi, Snippet. I didn't realize you were from the Netherlands. So I decided to go with a whole new setup for my enemy code, and I'm kind of like taking bits and pieces from the old one. So basically, to summarize what the problem with this enemy code is. So you have all of these files here. From enemy all the way down through this. So all of these files here, these represent all of the logic for the enemies currently in the game. Now, the problem that I'm running into is that when there's any sort of bug with the enemy's decision-making, the logic that it uses, like the enemy decides to go in the wrong direction, or it makes a weird attack, or it like jumps in the wrong way, you know, if any sort of problem like that comes up, tracking it down, it could be anywhere in any of these files, because I allow this code to make decisions in any of these files. So since it's so distributed, making new things and debugging has become an absolute nightmare. And over the weekend, I spent a lot of time rewriting everything into this new setup where it's kind of like a body metaphor, like a human body, where you have the body, the heart, the mind, and the soul. It's really cheesy, but bear with me. The idea is that the heart decides what its goal is. So the heart of the enemy, for example, let's say it wants to attack. Its goal is to attack the player. So that's what the heart is all about, is it decides what the goal is. And so it pings the mind, and then the mind is all about deciding what's the best choice for us to do in order to, in this moment, achieve what the heart wants. And so it has these extra files that like how to navigate and how to like determine your hostility patterns. There's a lot of complex logic that goes into that, and now I've isolated all of that into just these 3 files. It's way more compact, and I love that. And then from there, the mind and these few files are able to decide on the current in this moment task. That then the body is the set of files that specifically like move the enemy, it change its state, change its animation. I have it separated into muscles. So all of these files here are specifically files that contain actions that do things in the physical world of the game. Like the stuff in heart and mind, all of this stuff is like conceptual. It's just logic behind the scenes. All of this muscle stuff, these are things that are actually moving, or hitboxes, or physical effects, or animations in the physics. It's all contained in these specific categories. And I know that my metaphor of using a human body with like muscles and systems, that's pretty cheesy. I won't deny that. But also, I think it's really memorable, and it went through a lot of iterations too. In fact, it started off not even as a human body metaphor. It was more of a like a company metaphor, where instead of a mind, you had a director, and then the director had advisors, where they were like in a conference room, and they were discussing things in order to decide what the task is. And then the body was like an operator who then had agents, and the agents carried out the actual tasks for the body. And it was fine. That was the first iteration. I legitimately probably spent, I don't even know, a full 40 hours working specifically on organizing and deciding how to lay out this logic so that it actually makes sense this time. Because the other thing is, I could keep using my current enemy code as it is. It's not that bad. But I'm noticing that as I add new features to it, it gets really hacky, where I just don't have enough flexibility in the fundamental pattern of everything to account for all the different attacks I want to add, or the movement things I need to add, or like weird animations. For example, I actually have a pretty decent example. I just need to change one thing. I want to spawn wasp. So this enemy here is something that this is kind of one of the first moments where I'm like, I should probably change how this is just set up, because I made this enemy the wasp, and the way it attacks, it's just like a regular like tackle, and I wanted to make it so it like rotated along with its tackle animation. And that sounds so simple, right? It sounds like a really easy and simple thing to do. to just make it rotate in order, I'm talking about like a wind-up rotation. Like, since it's trying to stab me with its stinger, I want it to like kind of rotate the stinger along with that movement. And I noticed that in my current enemy code, it was just, it was so hard. All of the way that everything was set up was so inflexible that even something as simple as that was so tricky to implement. And I'm like, this should be easy, and the code just isn't allowing it. And I'm like, I just need to kind of rethink things. And the other thing is, like, when I'm making these new enemies and they do weird decisions, it's so hard to figure out where that's happening. It legitimately could happen in any of these files, because there's so many places that the code could change directions or change states without it really being properly tracked. How much does YouTube pay you per month? About $300. It's not very much right now. I'm hoping for it to go up in the future. What are the comments to spawn enemies? I tried them out, but it never was able to. Oh, sorry. That's not really how that works. Is the reason it doesn't work for you is because you need to rebuild the game in order for the change to take effect. So the reason why I have them all commented out is when I press the K key, it's not going to do any of this stuff. It's only going to do the one line that I have not commented out. And the reason I do this is so I can switch between them. So like I can change over to this and then try out this real quick with the same key. And I didn't really have to change too much code. All I had to do is comment and recomment one thing. And then now when I press the K key, it creates this little burst. But the reason you can't do that in like just the built Steam version or at all, because before I build for Steam, I comment out all of this stuff. Except for P, I think I leave this in. I think this is still in the Steam version right now. Yeah, they're all disabled. Exactly. It would be really, there's nothing here that you would want, because normally I just use it when I'm specifically working on the iWasp. I just wanted to have it tied to a hotkey as opposed to having to go into the debug menu every time. It's just a little bit faster to do it this way. Can you make that skeleton you talked about before? So it's funny you mentioned that, because I'm working on a new video this week that's being edited by my editor right now, actually. And it is going to include some like footage of how an old skeleton enemy was made, because I have a skeleton enemy in the code. Let me pull that up right now. In sprites, enemies, where are you? Skeleton. Slow. Okay, here he is. So I have a little skeleton character, and this guy originally came from my mobile game Necrozone. So in this video that we're working on, I'm going to show off like some of the history behind some of these sprites. Same with this one. Well, this is probably like 90% my design. Like I animated all this stuff, but the original shape I think I did get from an asset pack. Won't be able to play this, so you can play the current Steam build on Steam right now. It's a bit of an older version. You've been trying to code with Love2D and have copy pasted a red circle spawning in random location when the character I made touches a circle, but when I try to change the circle to an image, there is an error. Depends on how you're drawing it, because yeah, you'll just have to clarify like what line of code specifically is crashing the game. And yeah, the error message, the nice thing about Love2D error messages is that they specifically tell you the line that things are crashing on. Like, if I try to do this, I think that this is going to crash the game. So yeah, in this case, it did. And I'll zoom in just a bit so you can see it a little bit easier, because it's tiny. But it tells you syntax error on main.lua. And it says main.lua 75. It says 75 right here. That's the line. That's the line that broke. And it's saying that equals sign expected near end. So we'll just check out what's on main.lua 75. So on line 75 is here. So that tells me that somewhere in this if statement lies the problem. And then that's when you kind of like look into it really deep and say, okay, something here is not right. I made something wrong. Did I learn to make debug tools from your past job? Yeah, I'd say so. Well, when I say debug tools, in this case, the debug tools are all built into the game itself, where it didn't really require any custom knowledge to do that. But the idea of building software and building features for the sake of testing, yeah, I would say that mindset is from my job, because I did have to think about that a lot and think about testing routines and think about automation and anything that can help with preventing any sort of bug slipping through. That's a really good question. But my debug, when I say debug, that just refers to this menu here. It's just like I can warp to different places, I can spawn different weapons and enemies, and change different features about the game to make it easier. Oh, I added this recently where you can increase the game speed. So I'm gonna make it like, this is 3 times as fast. Whee! So the game's a lot faster now, because I have that little feature in place. But this is just for testing purposes. This isn't going to be in the final game, or maybe it will. It's just going to be like a little secret menu. Maybe when you beat the game, I can unlock it for people. Because this game could be like a fun sandbox if I had the right like areas and right features available. Imagine if the sun be the reason the moon is breaking. Well, so something kind of like that is, I want the sunflowers to kind of be a part of that narrative where, like the sunflowers are kind of evidence of that. Should be able to slow it down too. Yeah, you can. I should have shown that because that's more valuable, honestly. The reason why I implemented this in the first place is because on stream someone was asking about the sword slash animations. So I'll show that real quick. That's shattering in slow motion. So someone was asking about the sword slash animations, and being able to slow down makes it a lot easier to see exactly what's happening. It happens like instantaneously. And then actually with the hitboxes, yeah, that is a lot easier to see now that it's slower. Because the game is pretty fast by default. You can make it really slow. Oh my gosh. It's gonna take a while to even fix this. Wow. I'm gonna just close that. That's a bit too slow for me. Did I make the art myself? Some of it I did and some of it I didn't. And that's what the topic of this next video actually is gonna be, is how the pixel art in this game kind of came to be, where a lot of it is custom made by me. A lot of it is recycled from old games where I edit it to match my new style. Some of it comes from open source or paid asset packs, and some of it I commissioned from other artists and I pay them for their work. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. There's a lot of, it's not just me. It is 99% me, like, because I'm the one organizing everything and I'm the one working on it constantly. But there are other people that made stuff that's being used in this game. It's not a solo completely endeavor. Then you should be exempt from game speed. Probably yeah. Probably yeah. At the moment the menu is kind of well integrated into the game itself, because it like zooms in on the character and it kind of feels like it's part of the game world. Kind of. I do think that it should be exempt. I'm with you there. The other thing is I should change the player's position. It's not exactly in the middle of the screen anymore, because I changed the size of this. Oh, whoops. Well, I guess it looks fine still. But it is still a little bit too far left because I changed the size of this menu right here. Also, it's not fully on screen. The stream's not capturing the exact precise dimensions of everything. How do you make your attack hitboxes only hit enemies once? Oh, that's an awesome question. In fact, that is such a good question. I should make a short about it. That's such a good question. I'm going to write it down because I like that. So the way that works is, like you said, a hitbox is out for multiple frames. And if an enemy is checking for hitbox detection every frame, and the same hitbox is over top of the enemy each frame, you don't want that hitbox to trigger a collision every single time. Like, just because this, like, let's say that this sword slash animation was on screen for 5 frames. We don't want the enemy to take 5 damage just because all 5 frames landed on this enemy. We want the enemy to take 1 damage and then the additional 5 frames that the hitbox is out, like those just don't really impact anything. So the way that works is every hitbox in the game, when it spawns, is given... Where is it? The UID somewhere. Maybe it's maybe I call it something different. Oh, it's just ID. It's just ID. So every hitbox is given a random ID, literally random. It's just a random number. And that hitbox has this ID as long as it's alive. So when that sword slash hitbox collides with the enemy, that enemy then needs to keep track of which hitboxes have hit it. So here is where I do that. This line, or this section right here. The way that works is the enemy has this thing called the hit list. I call it the hit list, where every time it gets hit, it's going to grab this ID right here from the hitbox, and it's going to add it to the hit list. And now that the ID is within the hit list, that hitbox is no longer going to impact the enemy on any more frames. This is the last frame. After it, if it sees that the ID is already in the hit list, you can see that it returns. It breaks the whole flow of everything. And if it's not in the hit list, then it adds it to the hit list, and it goes on. It's the first time. What's so mysterious about yellow? I don't know what is so mysterious about yellow. The mystery I was solving earlier was about copyright things on YouTube, but I think overall the mystery's solved. I had to report a dispute through YouTube for one of my streams. How did you structure your game folder / structure? Wondering if there's some guide you should follow. I mean, I recommend just learning from your mistakes. Like, the way you phrased it is perfect, because my structure for even this game keeps changing. I keep thinking I have it all figured out, but I really don't. And I have proof of that, because I have like enemies old, and then I have it organized by file, by like enemy type as a different file. Like, and I even have bosses have their own file. But then my second try, enemies, I have it organized completely differently, where like the logic is separated out by file. And then I have some additional files on top of that too. And I still have each enemy as its own file, but it's organized in a completely wildly different way, where it's just like extra... Wait, that's a bad example. That's the worst example. It's just a bunch of like config ideas, like the health or the width or the offset or some speed values, things like that. But my latest one, like the one I talked about with the human body metaphor, is called Mob. This is something that I spent literally a week brainstorming, and then probably I'm 3 days into coding so far. And the only way that you can get experience making setups like this is just by doing it over and over and over again. Because I tried doing the same sort of thing before, and this is what it turned out to be, is like this. It's just not as clean and organized. And you know what? The funny thing is, I bet in 6 months, I'm going to look back on this mob code here, and I'm going to be like, what was I thinking? I can't believe I thought that it made sense to put mob mind, mob set task is within mob mind. That doesn't make sense. Why would it be there? I guarantee I'm going to be thinking that. But for now, I think it's cool. So just join. What am I doing? At the moment, just talking about my code. Can I talk about object-oriented programming? Yeah, sure. I mean, as a concept, it's just a matter of making it so that you don't repeat too much of your code, like copy and paste too much of your code. And what I mean by that is enemies old. This is an exact example of why object-oriented programming is very important, because I have files like this. bat.lua. This is not a good example. How about this one? Yeah, how about this one? So this section of files has a lot of copy-pasted logic for each individual enemy. Like I have this aggro file, and I have this update. And a lot of this is going to be very similar, I bet, to like skeleton. Oh look, the exact same function is right here. This update, wow, it looks the exact same. How inappropriate is that? This is why object-oriented programming is necessary, because now, let's say in the future, let's say that there's a bug. There's a bug where, oh, this moving equals 0, I actually should have changed it to moving equals -1. But now, I need to make that exact same change to all 10 of these files over here. That's obnoxious. That's such a bad way to do this, because you are copy and pasting things. Your logic is going to be mismatched, and things are going to be impossible to keep track of. It makes more sense for all of this logic to be contained in one place, and then each of the individual pieces just call that logic. You don't have to copy and paste anything. And that's kind of just the main goal behind it. If I go up to enemies, this is the one that's currently running in the game. It fixes this a little bit where I have this generic enemy. Well, actually, all of these files is generic enemy code. It works across every single enemy in the game, and stats represents the child classes, so to speak. The problem with talking about object-oriented programming in Lua is that Lua is not an object-oriented language, and the way that I do OOP is by kind of like replicating it. So that's what this is meant to replicate, is that this is kind of meant to be the parent class. This is the generic code that all children, all enemies operate under. And these files up here underneath stats are meant to be specific files. This is specific code specifically for the slime enemies. We got slime red, we got slime blue. They have different, well, in this case they're exactly the same, but you could give them different health values and different speeds and stuff like that, you know. And then that's kind of, this saves you a lot of time, because instead, if I want to do this before, like what, I would have to copy and paste these giant files together and hope that everything stays exactly the same through the course of development. It's not really feasible. It makes way more sense to have all of this logic in one place and call it in multiple places. How did I learn Lua? Just practice all the time, make a bunch of games with it. I have a long video on my channel called Learn to Code with Lua that I recommend. It's you can do it all in your browser. How do you read other people's code? Is it easy for me? At this point, yeah, it is easy for me to read other people's code. In fact, I would even that it doesn't even matter what language it is. I can probably read what the logic is trying to do. I'm sure there's some exceptions, but in general, that's true. Because most languages are very similar to each other at this point. I wouldn't say that I would consider that part a hurdle. But reading other people's code is tricky because some people are just not organized with their code. Sometimes you'll run across people who organize their files like this. And it's like, oh my god, dude, why did you organize your file like this? You made one giant enemy file, and it's 1900 lines long. It's almost 2000 lines long. And you have all of these different functions all crammed in here. Imagine if you had to read through this as someone who wasn't me. It's easy for me to read through this code because I'm the one that read it, but like you said, when you're reading someone else's code, you don't have any of that context. It's way harder. Hey, I'm lagging. I'm sorry to hear that. I don't think that there's anything I can do, but hopefully the lag doesn't last very long. How do you make sure old code still works and doesn't cause any new bugs? The only way is through testing, but as long as you're mindful about what those old features are, because like you said, when you make any changes to old code, there is the possibility of things just breaking, and it's hard to predict that. You really can't predict it. You can go into it with as much confidence as possible, but like my time in the industry has shown me that you have to have automation tests in place or manual testing if it's simple enough, and do it at every phase of the process before rolling out. That's why games take a long time in that phase, because it just, I don't know, it's just a process of ironing out all that stuff. Lua's fun. I completely agree. What do you think about the Nintendo Direct? We got Deltarune, we got Silksong. Oh my gosh, I really, really loved the Direct. I thought the Direct hyped me up a lot. And I know that the community response to the announcements afterwards were more mixed. But in terms of like how the games look and how the console looks, I thought it looks great. I'll just say that. I'm not sure if I'll be getting it on release. I'm sure I will, but it just depends on how things play out. I know there's a lot of uncertainty in that space at the moment. How do I make 2D lightning? I assume you meant lighting, and I did it through shaders. So I have this big overlay, and the shaders like cut a hole through the overlay, and it does this by, I guess it would be up here. Nope, it would be up here. For each light, it's going to check the distance of that pixel and set its alpha value based on this formula here. Whoops. And when you do that on like a big overlay, like a big black screen overlay, it like pierces it as if it was light. And it's really complicated, but and I do wish there was more resources out there for that. What other programming language do I know? A lot. I'll go through them. In high school I learned Visual Basic, and then Java, and college was Java, and then C++ in college as well. I used all the web-based ones, so that's like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. In the industry, I used, let's see, all the Microsoft suites, so like C# and TypeScript, and then like Lua. That about covers mostly Python. I used Python at one of my old jobs too. How long for you take to learn shaders? I really wouldn't say I ever learned shaders. I think that I would say I'm still in the learning process of learning shaders. I don't really know how they work. I know conceptually how they work, and I've shown this on screen a few times, or I'll pull it up right now. It's this Love 2D shaders. If you Google search Love 2D shaders, there's this blog online. It looks like this, A Beginner's Guide to Shaders. I think this is the guy who made Move or Die, because he uses a lot of those assets in this tutorial, or one of his tutorials. And I followed this blog post, I don't know, probably like almost 10 years ago, and that's how I got used to it. It gives you the fundamentals of how to set it up, and the fundamentals of how they even work and what the purpose of them is. Like, I think that this example here is a really good demonstration of what shaders do. Is that you have different visual code running on different parts of this screen, where this half of the screen turns the square red, and this half of the screen turns the square blue. And the cool shadery part is the transition in the middle. It looks so nice. Give you more Moonshire? It's coming, I promise. Like, I feel like I've been showing a lot on stream. I know that the Steam demo is a bit behind. Is being an indie game developer a good way to earn passive income? I'm thinking to start up my own game dev after I retire. You think it's a good idea? Well, no. I personally, speaking personally, I have made $0 from selling games. Just haven't. YouTube gives me some. I get $300 per month from YouTube from my channel, which I wouldn't say is a super high amount of money. I have the Udemy courses. That's also not very much money either. It's not, none of this is enough to even cover my rent. So like this apartment, my 1-bedroom apartment, I can't even cover the cost of rent with any of the stuff that I'm doing right now. But my career, my day career, that I spent a lot of time on and a lot of effort making as good as possible so I could save money and live conservatively and live well below my means so that I could do this, that was the goal. I would not consider this a financially viable option just because, like maybe my game will make money when I start selling it. Maybe when Moonshire is done, you know, whenever that happens, and I sell it, I do think that it'll be able to sell, and I think people will like it, and it'll make money. But I think that the main reason why I was able to do that is because I built up an audience on YouTube that took an extraordinary amount of time and effort to build up the relevant skills to do that as well. So, like, game development on its own, I wouldn't say is particularly financially going to pay off, but it's paying off for me because I really dug all in. I've been doing this for so long. Like, this channel that I'm on right now, this isn't even my first game development channel. I had one from when I was a kid, and I'll show it on. I'm gonna make a video about that old channel sometime soon because it's really funny. There's videos online from when I was 12, and I'm like doing game development tutorials for Game Maker. It's awesome. It's so cool. That's the only way to be successful. And when you said when you retire, I think that that's a great idea. I think that you should work on your game development skills from now until the day you retire. And then the day you retire, you're going to be exceptionally good at game development. You're going to be amazing. And at that point, you might actually be good enough to take it full time and live off of it. But in the short term, it's really hard to do. It's like asking if being a YouTuber is a good way to earn passive income. Yeah, YouTube is possible for anyone to, like, well, I don't even know, because there's definitely luck involved. Sure, I got very lucky being able to secure an audience. But at the same time, if you look at the videos that I posted at the very start of my channel compared to the videos that I posted like over the past few months, the level of quality it's like night and day. You can see all the things that I worked on and all the things that I improved on in terms of especially audio quality. My audio quality sounds really good now. That's really big. The video quality, all my videos are 60 FPS and at least HD, which is also very nice. I can't say the same about my old recordings. It's hard to get the cadence of a script down. Speaking confidently is hard. It takes a lot of practice to get to the point where your videos are actually competent. And even then, like, people just might not see them because you're competing with every other channel on the platform. It's a hard space. I do think that if you stuck with it for long enough and you built up the skills, that's the thing, is as long as you're improving your videos each time, I do think that you'll eventually reach that. What other games have you made for learning as a beginner? I have a game on GitHub called Cavern that I made, and it's open source. I made that to kind of teach myself Love 2D. But I also I have like Necrozone. I consider that kind of a learning project, because that was a different game before even Necrozone. Have I watched Invincible? No, I'm actually not much of a TV watcher. I think I would like Invincible, though. I've heard it was amazing. You're currently working on Unreal Engine scripting to get better scripter? I mean, yeah, that's the only way to get better at anything is just to do it all the time. But Unreal seems really neat. I want to try out Unreal at some point, just because in terms of graphics quality, I think that one is the most promising. I bet that even someone like me would be able to make a decent looking scene that's genuinely good looking. I've seen some games on Steam that almost look like they were low budget or low quality, but yet they still have super high realistic graphics thanks to Unreal Engine. So it's like, I think that even there's a lot of potential there. How did I learn Lua? Just from making Love 2D games, and I already knew languages before that, so transitioning wasn't as difficult. Why Lua among all the other languages? Just because I liked Love 2D. I didn't really choose Lua, I chose Love 2D. I was researching all the different game frameworks and engines at the time, and Godot wasn't out at the time. I would have considered that one as well. But this is just the one that clicked with me the most. I can't really put more thought into it than that. Have I thought of complete night mode in Moonshire? Complete night mode. I don't know what you mean by that. Any ideas for people who are bad at pixel art? Oh, I mean, I relate to that very hard because I was not good at pixel art for a long time. I do have a lot of advice, and it's coming in this video because this coming video that me and my editor are working on, it's all about the pixel art in this game, and I think that it'll help answer your question a lot. So stay tuned for that. Is coding easy for me? At this point, yeah, I would say coding is easy for me. All this stuff feels very second nature. But I've been doing it for so long. Like, I'm 28 now, and I started using Game Maker when I was like 11 or 10. You could argue that using the drag and drop coding stuff isn't actually coding, but I think that got me involved at least. And I took coding classes in high school, and then I got a CS degree, and then I was in a software position for years, and then I'm here making a game full time. So yeah, I just the reason I feel comfortable with this is because I've done it non-stop for, man, so long. I never really stopped. I really like it. I think it's normal to like things that you're good at, though. It's normal to lean more into things that you feel comfortable with, where starting out with anything, like pixel art, for example, I hear people talking about pixel art. It's so hard to start with pixel art because when you start, everything looks bad. All of your art doesn't look very good. And like, no one likes being bad at something. It feels bad to spend a few hours on a sprite and then it turns out not looking very good. That feels like a big waste. But at the same time, that's how you have to do that in order to learn. There's no other way around it. And thankfully, I started when I was a kid. Like, I started doing pixel art when I was a kid, and I was able to push through that phase of being bad at pixel art. It's a lot easier to push through that phase when you're a child because, I don't know, your standards are lower. I didn't realize how bad my art was at the time. I think that kind of helps. But even if you're an adult, you still have to power through that. There's no way around it. And then the nice thing about being an adult is that you have the tools and resources to learn faster than a kid can. Hi from Brazil. Is there good resources to learn the framework that I'm using to develop my game? Really, I'd say that the getting started playlist on my channel, there's a playlist for Love2D Basics. I think that's a good place for getting started because I'm using a framework called Love2D, and it's kind of niche, a little bit niche, but I have a lot of videos on my channel that should help help people with getting started. When I reach 100K, congrats. Thank you, Mr. Junior Monkey. That was a month or two ago, I think. But yeah, I just posted the photo a couple weeks ago. Saw my videos, and I'm now working on a game dev. Awesome, cool. How to start? My advice is always the same for how to start. It's, unfortunately, you gotta start small. It's the same as I was just saying about pixel art, where when you start out making pixel art, all of your sprites are ugly, and it's not fun to make ugly sprites, but you have to make ugly sprites for a while before you can start making good sprites. And it's the exact same thing with game development. You're gonna have to make, like, crappy games, small crappy games, for a while before you can start making anything that's kind of good looking. And it's even harder with game development, honestly, because game development is a combination of multiple skills. It's pixel art or whatever type of art style you're going for, and then you have the coding aspect, and then you have like the sound design aspect, the music. You have to pick out good assets or find or create good assets for those, and then you know that's the main thing. But you also have to worry about, well, no, there's the narrative side is kind of important. You have the level design, and there's all these different skills that go into it. You can't really expect to get it all right on the first try. That's why I had to do this for so long. I've been working on this game for so long, and all this time I've still been improving on all of those skills. And at this point, I play the game. Yeah, I really should. At this point, I do genuinely feel competent at everything. I'm like a jack of all trades, master of one: programming. I'm master of programming. But everything else, I wouldn't say I'm mastering quite yet, especially not pixel art. Like, I really wouldn't say I'm that good at pixel art, but I have an eye for it, I think. What's the A symbol on the left side of VS Code? Oh, that's Azure. Microsoft Azure. So Azure is what I worked on when I worked at Microsoft, but I've been using Azure to work on a website that is going to be for the game. I got one Triforce piece, which is programming. Yeah, exactly. That's such a nice way of putting it. I would say that I'm a one Triforce piece kind of guy. My coding skills are up to snuff. Whee. Oh, I've already been here. I should start a new file, honestly. When I have experience in game making, is using open source game as a template to start off a good idea. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's okay. As long as you are... I mean, I would say that's fine. I would say starting with a template, as long as it's not like the bulk majority of your code, I think that's fine. But I do, like you said, it's the word of warning of relying on it too much. You want to make sure that you understand it. The big appeal of Love2D for me is that I understand every line of code. I wrote everything, and if there's a problem, I know where it's at. Most of the time. I talked earlier about how it's difficult with like all these enemy files over here, but in general, since I'm the one that made it, I do have a pretty good memory at like finding where things would go wrong. And that cannot be said at all when you're using an open source template to do the heavy lifting for you. I think you still could, as long as you are fully in tune with all the details of what the template's doing, and, you know, get past that hurdle. I think it could still be fine for kickstarting the project. But it's hard to know when you reach that point of, I get this, let's use a template to kick things off, because it's a really good process of going through everything, even the boring, mundane things, because you catch little details, and also you can plan ahead. If you know what features are going to go into your game, you can anticipate that a little bit while you're developing, and then incorporate those features with the gameplay and the fundamentals, you know. The fourth Triforce piece is Sanity. Yeah, I haven't found that one yet. What are the three Triforce pieces? The top one is coding, the left one is pixel art, and the right one is, I guess, sound. Sound is very broad. And I feel like a lot of people that want to get into game development reach out to me asking to do music. And I worry that there's an oversaturation of musicians in the game development space, because that's also something I like the most too. I'm making all the music for my game, but at the same time, it's a disproportionate number of people that reach out to me wanting to do music for the game than wanting to do coding for the game. I don't think anyone has reached out wanting to do coding for the game. Some people reach out wanting to do art or something like that, but no, normally I stick to my tight-knit group of people that have been working on this for a while. Because if I'm using a template, I just need to change the level design characters and some pixel art. Well, sure, but then if there's a bug in your code, how do you fix it? That's the crutch of this whole situation here. Is like your plan works until it doesn't. Do I use Adobe? Nope, I do not. Not really out of like principle, but I just don't want to spend the money is the main thing. In ChatGPT, I mean, today that only goes so far. The answer to every problem. Oh, what mystery am I solving? It was about copyright, because my earlier stream got copyright claimed by what I suspect to be an imposter. Am I Jewish? Nope, I am not. I was talking about, ChatGPT. So someone said ChatGPT. You can use ChatGPT to help with bug fixing, but it won't teach you things. Like, it won't give you experience. Like, your goal with game development and any skill, including art, including whatever it is, your goal is to make things while also getting experience along the way. You can think of it like an RPG. You have an experience bar, but you also have money. And you want the money to go up, but you also want the experience bar to go up too. Because if you get a bunch of money but no experience points in your experience bar, then you're going to be underleveled for the end game, and it's not going to work out. That's my my video game analogy for this one. Do I use VS Code AI? Yeah, I use VS Code. I use GitHub Copilot. They actually changed it recently. I noticed it yesterday, where it's extremely fast, and it comes up with like really weird stuff. But the one thing I noticed is it's finally doing a decent job of reading across multiple files, because as I was rewriting this mob file setup, I noticed that it was picking up on my language, like what I was saying. And it was, the other thing is that it writes really nice comments. It's good at commenting code. That's probably the biggest benefit I get out of Copilot, is that it auto-generates comments like this, And it's gotten me into a pretty decent habit of putting comments into my code because it's so quick. It like takes no time for me to put them in. By reading through the template code, I feel like I can learn much faster, right? Nope. Nope. I'm sorry. I don't think that you can. Reading and studying and watching videos and looking at things, you will not learn. The only way to learn is through experience. I talked about this in the previous stream too, where as much as I agree that using tools that are pre-made like AI or templates, those tools can get you to your destination faster. And they can get, when I say get you to your destination, they can create a final product faster, but they can't give you that experience. And it's the same with like school, how I got a computer science degree, and I would say school probably taught me 5% of my coding knowledge, and then the remaining 95% of my coding knowledge came from working on projects. Like I was a software developer, so I was being paid to work on complex issues, and that's where I learned the most by far. And I do want you to make a game, and I think it's okay to use a template, but you aren't going to be learning how to make a game by doing that. You're going to be learning about making assets and creating levels. And like you said, you're going to be focusing on the content part. If that really is your goal, just to make content using a pre-existing engine or a pre-existing code base, like that is totally okay. If that's the intention. But when you say learning, if your goal is to get better at game development, I don't think that you're going to learn nearly as much by doing that than if you built everything from the ground up. It's always that time versus, output sort of equation, where the best answer for any problem is going to be to master the skill and then tackle the problem with a sense of mastery. The problem with doing that is that it takes 10,000 hours to master a skill. So you can't, no one's willing to wait 10,000 hours to make their first game. No one wants to do that. I don't blame you. You have to suffer through that phase of learning before the output is going to be reasonably good. So instead of spending the 10K hours mastering the skill, you could leverage other people's work in order to get there faster, and you'll get to an output that potentially is as good as what you could make yourself. But like I was saying before, your EXP bar, you're not going to be gaining XP nearly as fast along the way. So you're trading the output for the lack of experience, or the extra stuff you get out of it. I was also saying that studying for things is one way to kind of learn, but the real way to learn is by overcoming challenges. And game development poses a lot of challenges, constantly nonstop challenges. And when an AI, or you're relying on someone else or something, whatever else the topic is, to solve those problems for you, it's removing that learning vehicle from the whole equation. You're not overcoming the challenge if something else is overcoming the challenge for you. You can see how they overcame the challenge. An AI can overcome a challenge for you, and then you can observe how it overcame the challenge. But I wouldn't call that experience, because the next time it happens, will you really know exactly how to do exactly what the AI did? You like my attitude? Thank you, Chris Schaub. I appreciate that. I did use Scratch a lot when I was younger. Yeah, I love Scratch. I actually taught Scratch through a remote program while I was working at Microsoft, where I taught a high school how to use Scratch, and it was awesome. It turned out really good. I got 5,000 hours in GameMaker, my Steam says. Really? Wow, that's really cool. I didn't know that you could run GameMaker through Steam. It makes sense they would allow that, since that just gets more people into the ecosystem. I run a lot of software through Steam. In fact, I'm running my chat through Steam right now. I have Sheep Chat running, and I have Asebrite. Yeah, Asebrite is also through Steam. So all of this software is through Steam as well. What I like about Steam is that it just keeps all of my software in one place. even though, you know, it's a little bit awkward sometimes that I have to start up Steam and then start up Sheep Chat. But also, it's nice that whatever computer I go to, I can just load up a Sprite. It says I have 2,200 hours in a Sprite. That sounds about right. The next time that it happened, I would ask ChatGPT until I understand it. Yeah. How do you make your sounds? So I typically start with a baseline where I've paid for probably hundreds of dollars worth of sounds. So I have an endless number of sound effects to start as a baseline, and I just listen to them for hours on end. Excuse me, that's hard to say. Hours on end. And when I find something that sounds neat, I'll add it to a new folder. And then what I do from there is I use Audacity to add a bunch of changes to it. So pretty much no sound effect just works right out of the box, right away. I always have to change something about it. And the other thing is I always convert them to .ogs. So if I go into my files, I need to find my sounds. Here they are. So I have all my sounds in here. So I have the, that's a bad example. Jeez, that takes so long. But I got these OGG files. So if you don't know what a .ogg is, it's very similar to a .mp3, but .oggs are a little bit better because they have no startup and buffer. So in MP3, and correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, I think this is true. An MP3 has a slight delay to when the audio actually begins, and a slight delay to when the audio ends, compared to these .oggs are truly seamless, which is useful for games because games have like the cyclical music audio. It plays on a loop, and if the MP3 has any sort of gap in there, even if it's microscopic, so to speak, it would cause a bit of a like judder when the song loops. So using .oggs is really nice for that. But the other thing is that, like, when I find one of these sound effects, I will do a lot of editing on them where I pull them into Audacity, and then I'll do things like up here in the tools or effects. I do a lot of, compressor sometimes, and then I will change the pitch and the speed. That's a big one. So you can change like the speed to make it sound like more higher pitched, and if it's faster or snappier, whatever I need it to be. Ball stretch will like stretch it out and make it sound funny. Filters, like low pass, is really good when it needs to sound like it's coming through a wall or from farther away. Noise removal, if there's some weird issue with it, I don't use it too much. Delay makes it so that there are like echoes, and reverb makes it sound like a bit more like you're in a room. .wav files are bigger though, aren't they? Yes. .wav files are basically uncompressed audio. So as far as I know, they're basically fully uncompressed, and they're huge because of that. If you take in fact, let's do a comparison. I'm going to export this audio as a .wav. Give me one moment. I'm going to export it as a .wav, and then we're going to see what the difference is in size. Okay, that took me a second, but I got it. Okay, so here we have bolt.ogg, and if I go into the properties on this, man, it is so tiny. It is so hard to read any of this stuff on Windows. It is 17 kilobytes, so it's 17 kilobytes big. And the WAV file is 195 kilobytes. So the .wav file is over 10 times as big. It is over 10 times bigger than the OGG file. And that adds up a lot over the course of all of the sound effects that goes into a single game. And the other thing is that you can't even notice the difference. If you listen to these files independently very, very closely with perfect headphones, it's still, I don't even think that you'd be able to tell the difference. That's how good compression is these days. So it's quite important to remember what file types you're using. MP3s are way better than waves, but even still, OGGs are better yet because they're like perfectly seamless. Is Audacity free? Yes, it's fully free. Do I still use WinField for physics? Some say it's outdated now. I mean, it is outdated. That's true. So the archived repo on GitHub hasn't really been touched for a long time. And although it's outdated in a sense, it's really not, because if you download the files for it from that archived repo, they still work perfectly with Love 11.5 as it currently is. You don't need to change a single thing. It works perfect. The reason why it's being considered outdated is, one, it doesn't have a developer actively working on it anymore, and two, when Love 12 comes out, it's expected that things are going to be very different with how physics works in Love 12, that it's not going to work with WinField anymore. And since there's no developer working on WinField, that leaves a lot of questions of if we should even use WinField at all anymore. And although that's true, my response is always that if Love 12 comes out and things are very different for that, well, we're going to have to change all of our tutorials anyway. So I still use WinField. Like, I use WinField for my game now. And I still have my tutorial up on my channel because I do still think it's the best option. But when Love 12 comes out, it is going to change. I'm going to have to change all of my code to adapt it, or I'm going to have to change WinField completely. It's going to have to be completely different. So maybe I just have to rewrite my own third-party physics wrapper to supplement Love 12. And if that's the case, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But right now, I do still think WinField's the best option. And my evidence for that, by the way, is Love 12 is simplifying the physics system to make it more similar to WinField. The problem with physics as it is currently is that you have to worry about the body, the shape, and the fixture independently. But WinField consolidates those three things into one entity called a collider. And that's basically what they're doing in Love 12. They're changing the physics system to be very similar to why people like WinField. So I'm excited for when that happens, but it is going to change some things. By the way, are you retired and doing this as a hobby, or are you working on it full time? I'm working on it full time, but you could make the argument that it's retirement because this doesn't make money yet. Like, the YouTube channel does not cover my bills. My Udemy channel doesn't cover the bills either. So like, all of the income that I make from Challicate stuff doesn't even cover my rent, literally. Maybe if you combine Udemy and YouTube together, maybe it does. No, I really don't think it does, because Udemy's been paying out like $800 and YouTube is like $300 and my rent is $1,200. So no, I don't even think I can cover my rent. The reason I said Udemy channel, it's just on udemy.com. I have a few courses on there that has some side income from it. And the reason why I'm able to do this is not because my games are producing an income. I make $0 from games. I'm able to do this because I saved up a lot of money in my career. I lived very conservatively, and I still live very, very low cost of living. Like, I know my game collection behind me kind of contradicts that, but this is a lifetime collection from my entire childhood. It's mostly games from when I was a kid. Do you think about making a tile map one color like a mask and then using shader to fill it with texture? Maybe. That's an interesting idea. That could probably work for some styles. For mine, I think I prefer having individual tile sets and individual sprite sheets for the different like vibes or different areas, because the main appeal of using a mask would be like you could have a snow area that uses the same tiles as the grass area. All you do is just change the green to white, and then now you have a snow area. And there are certain games that can achieve that pretty easily, and it works well. I could do the same thing. And honestly, with shaders, I can do the same thing too, where if I go into the game, I'll probably be able to make, like, I can make this area look different if I go to shaders, and let's make it really blue. And let's reduce the green. And let's make it darker, more saturated. So, like, it looks like a totally different place now. It's the same tiles, but it's like really, it's like a UV, it's like UV world. It's really strange. But this is kind of in the same vein of what you're talking about, is you can use different tricks to achieve different styles. So this is something to be on the lookout for. What new enemy ideas do I have in mind? At the moment, I think I'm mostly set for the upcoming demo release. Omelette. Use tiles for all maps. What do you think about just hand drawing everything and then overlaying a collider trigger, whatever layer on top of the image? So I'm doing both of what you said. It's funny you mentioned the overlaying collider / triggers, because that is what I'm doing. I am doing that. So maybe actually we're on the same page. So what I do is, like, here's an example of a map. All of the things that you see, like the tiles, that is achieved using a tile set. If I go down to terrain, we can see, like, the cliff tiles down here. All you do is you just place these tiles in the world in order to create the layout. But those tiles themselves don't have collisions, because some tiles have weird shapes. You, like down here, you don't want to put collisions on the tiles themselves, or you can in some cases. But in my case, I do what you said just a moment ago, where I overlay the colliders. You can see these, like, rectangles that I drew over top. That's the actual physics. That's the actual wall. And I do that because there are times where I don't actually want physics over top of the walls. Like, I don't want there to be physics over top of all this space up here. I only really want it, or sometimes the wall shape gets a little bit strange, and being able to manually draw it in. Oh, look, I made a mistake here. I missed a wall. Or actually, no, I can just extend this one. There we go. What games am I playing right now? Oh, really? Right now, I'm not playing too much. Oh, I'm playing Animal Crossing for GameCube. So every day, I've been playing Animal Crossing GameCube for the past 2 weeks, and I've been playing it every day, and it's so much fun. I can't believe how well that game holds up. I think that's the only game I'm playing right now, honestly. It's just, I spend 30 minutes every day on my GameCube Animal Crossing town. It's been cool. Does Lua make me money, or being a streamer or teacher? So YouTube makes a little bit of money. Udemy makes a little bit of money, but, like, Lua doesn't. I don't make any money from, like, actually coding Lua, and, like, if you're talking about the Lua, like, a sponsorship, no, I've never had a sponsorship for that either. So back to what I was working on. Oh yeah, Purple Land. It's obviously way too, like, bright and saturated. A slime boss? Yeah, a slime boss would be cool. I feel like a lot of games have that. Ooh, wow. You know what? I think it does kind of look better when it's saturated like that. It's hard to tell the difference. I think I need to bump it up even more. It is really tough to see the difference. When do I think Love 12 will fully release? I don't know. I've been hearing lots of different opinions on when it's coming out, but it's hard to say. Excuse me, man. What do I think about Balatro? I love Balatro. It's really cool. And I'm happy Balatro exists because it finally gives me a game to talk about when people ask if you can make a game with Love 2D. Because before I really didn't have very many examples. So being able to say, yeah, Balatro, you know, it was nominated for Game of the Year. It's like one of the biggest games of 2024, or whenever it was. I think it was last year. And yeah, imagine not being impressed by that. Did I play Death's Door? Yep, I got it on my PS5. I didn't beat it. I got probably about halfway through it, I think, but I did like it. I like how it plays, and I like the style of it. Shadow, hi, welcome in. Let's do something. So I'll use the lightning rod as it is currently to do this boss, but the lightning rod isn't meant to. Oh, whoops. Whoops. Let's just forget that happened. I think the problem is I need to go to a different save file. Let's go to this one. Alright, let's try that again. I want to get myself the lightning rod, though. I really like the lightning rod. Yeah, he was already dead. Yeah, the reason I haven't fixed that yet is because I'm going to change how that boss spawns in and everything, so I just didn't want to put more time into it. I made the lightning rod look like this, where it shoots these, like, lobbed discs. I don't think that it's going to be like that in the final game. I did that so that I could make the most recent short, where I show how this effect is achieved. But I don't know if I'm going to keep it like this. I might. But I'm going to practice with it. Like, I'm going to actually see if a weapon like this, where it lobs, feels good to even use in the first place. It's hard. But if you land the hit, it does 3 hearts. Man, it is tough. I think I need to make it a little bit easier to land. Or make the hitbox bigger. What is the dimensions of my levels? Let's see, I actually don't remember. Because they are all the same. So whatever this one is, we can go to map, map properties. And I thought you could see the map properties. Oh, it's up here. It's 38 by 20. So each tile is 16 pixels wide times 38. So it's 608 wide. And then 20 times 16 is 320. And it probably says that somewhere on here too, but yeah, that's the dimensions. Have I seen 33 Immortals? No, I have not heard of that. The staff works like that? I think it's fun to use. It's at least unique. That's the other thing, is I wanted each weapon to feel unique from each other. Flops, thanks for stopping in. Appreciate that. I need a marker on the ground so you know where it will land. Maybe. So the shadow keeps track of where it is, but you're right, it is hard to track where exactly it's going to land. You have to kind of just guesstimate. And also, it kind of goes far away from the player. I think it'd be easier if it was closer. Well, maybe. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure what the best option is. I don't even know why I'm showing this, because I'm going to change how that works. I'm going to cheat. New haircut? Yeah, actually. I might have had it last week too, but it was... When I get my haircut, I swear it's always so unpredictable where it looks different every single day. Do I have a game that has made me money? Nope. Not a single one. Why not make it where your mouse is aiming? I do. Oh, you mean like specifically. The reason why is because this game is playable on mouse and controller. So if I did that, I don't know how I would make it so you control distance with a controller. So instead, I think it makes more sense to just have the mouse choose the direction. Like, it's just a set distance. It's always the same distance. These guys are so hard to attack with this because they kite you. Or actually, I'm kiting them. Also, I can like spam this. There we go. That's how you do it. You spam it. Well, it also locks you in place when you do that. So I gotta be careful. I'm on my last life. It's so obnoxious. Yeah, if an enemy is fast, you just literally can't even hit them with this. The meta, basically. Yeah, that's too annoying. If I did that, there would have to be a way where it, like, you could do a short one, because the problem there is that the slime kept getting too close to me, and there was no way for me to hit it with this thing. It's a great weapon. I think it could be cool. Get Jack Black to voice a character? That'd be sick. Where to begin the game dev journey with Love to D? It's kind of overwhelming to see games like Balatro. Yeah, I mean, it's if you're starting, what the heck? That was weird. If you're starting off with game dev, it's always the hardest step is starting small. Where, yeah, it feels bad starting a game where like it doesn't look very good. But I used this metaphor earlier where if you're starting off with like painting, let's say that you wanted to learn painting, your very first painting is going to be ugly. It's not going to look very good because it's your first one. And it's the same with games. So how many paintings do you need to go through before you can start painting something that looks pretty good? You know, maybe you have to go through a dozen paintings. Maybe you have to paint for a few months or maybe even a year before the paintings you like make turn out looking even remotely good. So it's the same with games, unfortunately. You have to make little small projects in order to overcome that learning phase. And when I say you have to make them, I mean that, like, you have to make them. And it's going to be hard doing it on your own without, like, a tutorial telling you how to do it or without an AI telling you how to do it. But, like, that's the only way to learn is to overcome that challenge. How does the window scale the entire screen without the UI stretching? Oh, that's a good question. So everything is filtered through a camera. I have a cam file. Cam. And this file, everything's filtered through that, so it doesn't stretch anything. If the window size changes, like if I do this, it just zooms out the camera to fit the space. And if I make it narrower like this, it doesn't change the zoom out at all. You can see that up and down, it's still the same amount of zoom, but it is showing more left and right. But if I make this window like this, it's still the same amount of zoom. So that's my trick, is that vertically it's the same amount of zoom, but horizontally it just gives and takes. And then with the UI, it's still not perfect. It scales, but if I make it too narrow, it gets really screwed up. Like, you can't see everything, and that's kind of bad. How do you make that projectile have an arc in 2D to act like that? No, that is a good question. And in fact, it's such a good question that I made a short on my channel. So if you go to my YouTube channel, the most recent short that I posted answers that exact question. I think it's a great question. I really like this topic. I forgot that there's a fight here. Man, this is tough. Using this. I think the problem is just that it's too slow. Yeah, look, he jumps away before I even have time to hit him. Okay, that time I got him. So if you get him early... Oh, it didn't even work that time. I hate how he lands on the ledge, too. Man, this is impossible. We got some cool fight music, though. There we go. They're too dumb. They're too stupid for me. Does the horizontal scaling have a maximum value? Yeah, so good question. It doesn't, and it causes problems. So look, when I do this, and let's say I move it down like this, and then I make it very, very, very narrow, or let's say very, very wide, like this. Since I didn't provide a horizontal maximum for the screen, I can make it too wide, like this. Look, it shows off screen a little bit. Off here. It's messed up. Kyle, thank you so much. What game programming pattern do I use? ECS? Well, I wouldn't say there's a specific pattern. It replicates just object-oriented programming, but Lua isn't an object-oriented programming language. And although I wouldn't say I use ECS, it's kind of close to that. And it's different for every category of coding that I'm doing. So like I showed earlier how I'm working on different enemy code. And the one that's currently in the game looks like this, where I have all of these different generic enemy files. And every enemy uses each of these. But on an individual level, each enemy has their own individual, like, slime file, for example. All of these properties are specific to the slimes. And I'd say my coding style, in general, is just meant to compartmentalize everything in this way, where nothing's repeated. It's the same mantra as object-oriented programming. You just don't want to copy and paste your code. And what I'm doing is mostly meant to, like, accomplish that. How many dungeons in the game? It's hard to say. I don't want it to be too big. The main goal is for this game to actually be done at some point. I suspect it'll probably be 5 or 6. But my definition of dungeon is kind of light, where it's a quick jaunt through, like, a hostile area, where I don't want you to be stuck in a dungeon for an hour. I don't think I'm going to have anything like that. Maybe like a half an hour at most. Want to start making games in Godot? We have 3 years of Unreal Engine 5 experience. Yeah, it's hard starting with 2D when you're coming from a big full-fledged engine, because you have to, like, strip away all of the fancy stuff that the 3D engine does for you and get down to the nitty-gritty of, like, rendering 2D images to a game in order to achieve different effects. It's tough. The only way to learn is just to do it over and over again. But if you have specific questions about how anything works, I'm always happy to answer those. Is there a one-size-fits-all for inventory? I wouldn't say so, because even my inventory isn't one-size-fits-all. And I'll show you. So my inventory isn't even an inventory. It's more like a collection, where as you unlock new weapons, they show up here, but you can't just, like, switch between them willy-nilly. I'm going to make it so that that's why there's a sunflower icon up here. Is I want to make it so that you go to a sunflower in order to switch between your weapons or switch between your colors. Although right now you can switch between your colors right now, but I think I'm going to change that. What will you do after this game is done? Will you make a platform or continue making Zelda-like games? I don't know for sure, but I do know that I want to try out making a 3D game, because I have not made any 3D projects at all, and I think I'd be good at it. How lightning bolt that goes along the ground so it hits enemies along the way. Ooh, that's a cool idea. So that way, like, you can't accidentally overshoot them. It would, like, knock them back. That's a cool idea. Did I use a sprite for my sprites? Yep. I have it up and running right now, actually. And I think I can go over here. Nope. And hit this lever. There we go. Got about a half an hour left. My voice is, I feel a lot of, my voice is getting sore. We'll just leave it at that. I'm talking a lot. Is it controller friendly? Yep, it works fully on controller. The only thing that I would say is iffy on controller is some of the menus get a little bit messed up with, like, menus like these, where it's kind of complex to figure out exactly where the cursor needs to go. I think there are a couple spots where the cursor gets stuck, but besides that, the game is fully playable with controller. Do I have 3D modeling experience? Nope, not really. When I was in college, I probably spent a few months learning Blender and learning the basics of using it, but I really don't have any meaningful experience with it. Charge it up. That's a cool idea. I should drink more water. Oh my gosh, I totally should. Thank you. It's easy to get these guys when they're not jumping. Oh, look at that. See? Uh-oh. See? Now I can't even get them. Oh my gosh, it's so hard. Yeah, maybe this, maybe I need to change some things about that. I hate how the light goes out when you go in the water. It's not supposed to. Do I know any good A-Sprite tutorials? No, I'm sorry. I just taught myself everything. Same with pixel art. You can't really learn pixel art from a tutorial. You just have to do it a lot and figure out the tricky aspects of it. Okay. Do they also have iframes? The enemies don't have iframes, no. Why is there no health bar? On the enemies or on me? Because I think I have it set to just hide the HUD. Yeah, that's the only reason why. Oh, it's easy. I didn't even know that Bowser teleports in the second stage. I genuinely didn't even know that. I thought it was the exact same as the first one. I don't really know how to code in this editor too. Oh, sorry. I found your channel like 5 days ago, and the game you are making is exactly the same style that you want. Should you just make some small games and learn these aspects of 2D? Oh, totally. That's exactly what you should do. So let's say you're out there and you want to make a game that's similar to mine. I would say pick it down into the smallest chunk. Like a Zelda game like this, just focus on making a character that moves around a screen. It can be so simple. Like, and make a game where the only challenge is a character that walks around a screen and you pick up coins. It's a one-room game. You don't even have to have a camera. Just make a character that walks around and picks up coins. And even that is going to be hard. Like, I would say to even make it even easier. Even simpler than that. Like, make Pong. Even Pong is hard to make. But, like, if you do really want to make a Zelda-like game, start with just one piece of it. And then after you get a character that can walk around and pick up coins, then you can move on to adding, like, an enemy that you have to avoid. You have an enemy that, like, walks back and forth, or he chases you, and you have to run away from him. And then build it one piece at a time. And then make sure you're internalizing all that information, because the goal is not that this first game that you work on is going to turn out amazing. The goal is that you're going to make this game and you will have grown exceptionally as a developer during that time. You will have learned a lot and gotten better so that your next project will go much more smoothly, and that one might turn out to be a commercial success. But that's kind of why I'm hesitant to suggest using AI or a template, because that increases the odds that you'll reach the end of the project not having learned very much, or not having learned as much as you could have. And that's the main goal. You don't want to wake up in 5 years and realize that you are still only as good as you were 5 years ago. That would be embarrassing. I don't want to use AI at all. Yeah, I think that's probably a good mentality to start out with. I only think AI is useful for me because I don't need it. If you do need it, then I don't think that you should use it. The reason I bring it up a lot is because a lot of people ask about it, and then, like, even in this stream, there was a few people asking about AI, and the problem with AI is just that it removes the challenge for you, so it's just tread lightly. There's some pros and cons to AI, of course. Does a player in my game have an acceleration coefficient for moving? It feels so smooth. Yeah, kind of. So when you start moving, it does reach max speed instantly, I think. As far as I know, it does. But the reason why it feels smooth is because of the camera, I think. So the camera has damping. And what that means is that the camera doesn't immediately jump to the exact point that the player is at. It slowly transitions over to it. So look at how my mouse is over top the player. It's directly between the player's eyes. But if I move, like, my mouse is still in the exact center of the screen. Nothing's changed. But now when I move left and right, you can see that the camera kind of trails behind. And this helps a little bit with that smooth effect, is don't have the camera, like, statically always placed exactly on the center of the screen, exactly on the player. A bit of trailing, a bit of damping is good. It helps with that smoothness. And then the other thing that you mentioned was, like, a coefficient for deceleration. When I accelerate, I think I reach top speed immediately. But when you stop, the player does slide a little bit. There's a bit of a slide. So there's deceleration, but there's no acceleration. Love game field tips. Awesome. I'm glad. I really do not care on how much it costs. Nintendo made my childhood and we'll get Switch 2. I mean, yeah, I like a lot of the stuff that they've shown. And I probably will also buy it at some point too. We just need to see how things play out, you know. I know that there's a lot of uncertainty in the air. So it's hard to really say. I want the Switch 2 excuse me, I want the Switch 2 to succeed, because that means we get more Nintendo games, and I love Nintendo games. So I hope that things work out. How do I scale the shadows for each entity? Also, very good question. If I warp back to town. So, man, my throat's a little sore. Not sore, it's just I've been talking a lot. So, the player has a shadow. The blacksmith has a shadow. This thing has a shadow. The wood has a shadow. Everything has a shadow. And the way that works is in my files, my sprites, I have a shadows folder, and we can see that my shadow sprites are just these big white blobs. They look like this. They're just pixel art blobs. And every entity in the game can choose a blob for itself. Like the slime, I have shadow sprite, and it's this string that says round S. And if I go into my files, there's a file right here called round S. So this is the shadow sprite for the slime enemy specifically. And the reason why it's white is because when I go to shadows, I have this file called shadows. When I go to render or draw all the shadows, it sets the color to this standardized color of shadows. I think I actually... this is not a good example because I have this color hard set in multiple places. Look, that's dumb. But the whole point was that I keep the sprites white so that I can set the color of them here using this line. And every entity has its own like shadow string, and then it gets the corresponding sprite file for it, and then renders it using the appropriate color. Lots of Pokemon back to back, awesome. I mean, I'm not complaining, as long as whoever's making those copyright claims ain't doing the same thing. I was overthinking shadows like that a lot. I was considering rotating the sprite in 45 degree in the x-axis and to make them translate. Yeah, no. They're entirely separate images, and they're rendered separately. That way, yeah. The other thing is I used to do shadows a different way than that even, and I might still have them. I think I deleted them actually. I did not. I still have them. This is what the shadows used to look like, and they're so hard to see because I just shaded them black and translucent. So how do you... So it's very, very small, but they're just black translucent blobs. And it's the same idea as what I was doing before, but I realized that it made more sense to set the color and the opacity of these images using code as opposed to manually putting it into the image itself. So that way, if in the future I decided, oh, well, you know, the player's shadow, I have it set to 0.5, that's too opaque. It would look better if it was 0.25 instead. Instead of having to actually go into these files and change the art, I can just change the code here and it gets updated. It's a lot more convenient that way. I reckon you can make one sprite image and then scale the X and Y based on the dimensions. The reason why you can't do that is because of pixel art. So if we look at this, look at these shadows here. And actually, this oven is a pretty good example of why we can't do that. Because the pixel density of the shadow on this oven is incorrect. Like, look, I'll zoom in some more too. So the shadow pixels are bigger than the oven's pixels. There's a pixel size mismatch. And the reason why is because I needed to upscale the shadow in order to perfectly match the size of the oven. But that causes problems if you do that too much. In this case, it's not very noticeable, but if you did too much, it would become very noticeable. And that's why you have to use different images themselves, because like this shadow here is very wide. I can't use that same one for the player who's like a smaller little guy. He's just a little dude. You can't have this giant shadow on him. So that's why they're split up in that way. We got about 15 more minutes of stream. Just notice the exclamation mark over the excuse me. I'm really struggling. I think I'm gonna have to end stream like 10 minutes early just because my voice is given out. Hope my game blows up. Thank you. Notice the exclamation mark over the NPCs. Did I just make a white square? Kind of. Actually, no. It's pixel art. It's pixel art. So I just drew an exclamation point in pixel art and gave it a white outline. That's all it is. But yeah, I'm gonna have to end stream. My voice is completely shot. I keep stuttering and my throat's backed up. So on that note, I am gonna end stream. Thanks so much for being here, everyone. I do appreciate everyone and all the support. We have a lot of people in the chat. I do really appreciate each and every one of you showing up and being here for the chat and for the conversation. We got Adele and Sharp and Frowner and Sanai and Chow and Marsage Bright. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I'm sorry about that. But thank you, Wolf, and thank you to everyone else. Itai, I will be back next week for more Moonshire Monday, and hopefully next time I will have a more cleared up throat, so I don't have to end stream early. But thank you, Michael and Sam Game Dev and Sharp and Shadex and Sensational. Bye, everyone.